Welcome, everyone. My name is Caroline de Posada, and welcome to our Connect with Caro Expert Series. I am so excited today because we are welcoming a man who has changed the way that I think and has had a profound influence on my life since I was just a teenager, and has also been a really great friend to both me and my dad. So I am privileged and honored to welcome Randy Gage. Hi, Randy.
Hey, great to be on with you, baby.
I am so happy to have you here. As you know, I have followed you and admired you for many, many, many years. And you have, I wrote this in my newsletter yesterday and I meant it. You are a thought-provoking a game changer. You challenge people to think differently, and you have been provoking me and instigating and challenging me, and just since I was a kid. And that has really helped me in my personal growth, and I'm very grateful to you for that. So thank you.
That's a very diplomatic way to say, this guy infuriates me and drives me crazy.
Yes, but yes, and you infuriate me and you drive me crazy and you inspire me, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I'm only half kidding when I say that, because I feel like that's what my job is, right? It's not to pander to people and tell them what they want to hear. I always feel like if somebody isn't unfriending me or unfollowing me every day, I'm probably not really doing my job.
Well, I love that you see that, and it's actually a great place to start because you are considered to be a motivational speaker. But when I think of you, I don't think of a motivational speaker in the sense that I always sometimes categorize, and maybe incorrectly so, sometimes I categorize motivational speakers as people who tell you what you want to hear. But that's not what you do. You're not here to, blow smoke up people's butts. You're here to kind of challenge the way that they think and inspire them to act differently or think differently or behave differently or challenge their own beliefs. So how did you become that, being a motivational speaker?
Well, I wouldn't define myself as a motivational speaker, right? I get that that's the perception. And, in marketing, perception is the reality. So I'm okay with that. People call me a motivational speaker all the time. I'm in the Speaker Hall of Fame. I've spoken to more than 2 million people over 51 or 52 countries now. So, okay, I can wear that label, but that's not who I am. If you asked me to how I view myself, I would view myself as a writer, right? I'm in my element when I'm hunched over my MacBook Pro in my lonely writer's garret, tapping out my next book or my next blog post, because that's really the way that I like to communicate my ideas. But it's, again, I feel like, okay, I can, and what happens is when you write books, people want to hear the author. And I actually started as a speaker, right? Back in 1991, I was doing training seminars, right? That's where I met your father, is through speaking.
Yeah, but even in writing, you are in the personal development space. So still, even as a writer, you are defined in that personal development as a motivator, as an inspirer.
Well, that's a label or two that you're choosing to hang on it, right? But I'm like, when I write a book, like, you just were talking about my last one before we came on, which is called Radical Rebirth. I didn't write that book to be motivational, right? I wrote that book to share the process that I went through changing who I am, the process that I've done 5 or 6 times, right? So like your father used to be in a mastermind with me, with Lisa and Terry and Gina and
And
Bruce, and, a lot of our mutual friends. And they would probably tell you how many times we'd have a mastermind and they'd say, what is this, Randy? Is this your third midlife crisis or your fourth midlife crisis? Right. And I'm always like, God, I think I'm on number 6 right now. And instead of being ashamed of that, I'm hoping I have time for 3 or 4 more before I leave this planet, because I think that's what the journey to enlightenment, that's what the journey to wisdom, the journey to love, that's what I think it's about, is reinventing, recreating yourself. And so like that book, that was exclusively devoted to that. My Risky is the New Safe book and my Mad Genius books, they were really devoted to how do you live in this crazy world with such cataclysmic growth and technology, and everything is changing at this hypersonic speed. And how do you peer around the future and plan ahead and figure out how you're going to deal with all these challenges that didn't even exist before, right? Like you and your kids, you'd be thinking, okay, God, how can I prepare my kids for the future? What should they be learning? What can they be training in? But the best jobs of 2028 haven't even been invented yet.
That's right.
Right. So
I actually listened to a futurist. You and I have a mutual friend, Frances Rios, and she had her Women Who Lead conference in Puerto Rico. And I went to see her and to surprise her and support her. Our friend Betsy Guerra, who's on here today, was speaking at her event. So we went together, and there was a futurist that was speaking. And that futurist made me so excited about the future, where I had caught myself falling into the trap of being afraid of the future because there's so much unknown.
Right.
I had caught myself in that paradigm. And she just the way that she spoke about the future and about how it's expanding made me really excited about it. But I want to go back to your first transformation, because your first transformation is probably the most powerful one, I would say, because it was the one where you really decided to change your life, and you talk about it in Radical Rebirth. So tell our group who don't know you what your upbringing was like and who you were before you became the famous Randy Gage.
Well, for people who don't know my story, I was in jail at 15 years old for burglary and armed robbery. I was a teenage alcoholic, teenage drug addict, obviously made a few less than stellar choices with my life. So that was I had a single mother who raised 3 of us by herself back in the day, knocking on doors, selling Avon. And I mean, literally, it wasn't like today where somebody, maybe they're an Avon rep and they take a catalog into their office and sell to their colleagues. No, my mom literally went door to door, knocking on doors and saying, "Hi, I'm your Avon lady. Can I show you our catalog?" And try to sell them some lipstick or perfume or, whatever. And we were poor, she was raising these 3 kids. That's not a big income to raise 3 kids by yourself. And so we didn't have nice cars. We lived in this rented apartment with 2 bedrooms, and I shared one with my brother, and my sister and my mother shared a bedroom, and we didn't have fancy vacations. And, my friends, as I grew older, and my friends got go-karts and mini bikes, and their families went on great vacations, and they had their own private bedroom. And I was so bitter about that, and felt so entitled that other people had this stuff and I didn't have it. And so when you're under drug and alcohol, you're never going to think clearly. So my line of thinking at that point was, hey, these rich people have so much money, they don't need it. I should go and take it from them. And so that's what I did, right?
You're like Robin Hood.
Yeah. That's what I did. So that, yeah, that required a transformation to move forward.
So how did you decide to transform? What happened in your life that changed you? Because it requires big transformation to go from where you were at to where you are today.
Yeah, in my case, I was the recipient of an incredible act of humanity and kindness. My buddy from school, David, he dated a girl named Joy. Her father was a teacher. And she told him, Dad, you gotta go help Randy Gage. He's in jail. Nobody's taking care of him. He's gonna die there. Help him out. And I didn't know him. He didn't know me. One day there was some some keys jangling, and the cell door opened, and they let in this guy. And his name was Baxter Richardson, the teacher. And he told me, you don't belong here. You're capable of great things. And of course, I was like, who is this clown? Does he have any idea who he's talking to? That he thinks I'm? And I told him that basically, sorry, you're a nice guy, and it seems like you mean well, but obviously you don't have a clue of who I am and what's going on in my life. And he said, actually, I do. I talked to your teachers. I've read your transcripts. You're reading comprehension levels above college level. Your teachers tell me you skip school for 3 weeks straight, and you come in and you ace the test. So you don't belong here. You really are capable of great things. And I think at that point of my life, I was so desperate to believe what he said was true. So I believed it. And because I believed it, it was true. And just like if I wouldn't have believed it, it would not have been true, right? I do believe there is cases of where the power of how we frame things and how we believe or don't believe in things changes the reality of whether they're true or not. And because of that, I desperately wanted, I had been in jail for months already. So you're sitting in jail every day waiting for a court date. You kind of have a little time to think about the choices you've made in life. And I was thinking, these choices I made, they're not really paying off the way I was hoping.
I love that. And I love the fact that a teacher can have such a profound influence on you just by a conversation. The fact that you can perform a random act of kindness in one conversation and have such a deep impact on a person, I think should inspire us all to have more of those conversations and be the kind of people that tell other people you are capable of great things. You can do more than what you're doing with your life. And that's beautiful. But that wasn't the end for you, because if my memory serves me correctly, and I've been following you for so long, and I've heard so many of your speeches and so much of your content and read so many of your books, that sometimes I get I may get my facts confused. But I remember that you at some point started restaurants. Was it restaurants and they went into bankruptcy? So you had an issue with the people that you were working with. So how old were you when that happened? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it depends which time we're talking about.
Yeah.
Which
we want to know. Okay, so we have somebody asking on the chat. We don't want to skip over too much. Aileen wants to know in the chat, what happened after that conversation? She wants to know the whole story. So
okay, that's a great question to button that up. I had a public defender who believed in me, and then of course Baxter vouched for me, and he said if they let me out, he would get me enrolled in a alternate high school that he was part of working on, that they were doing at that point. And I had a judge who believed, okay, let's give this kid another shot. So they gave me supervision, which is what they call probation for minors. And the deal was, if I stayed clean until I was 18, then your record is expunged and you go free about your life. And so I got another chance and took it. And so I did join Baxter School for a while, but I was living by myself at that point. I had just told my mother, I just want to be, take care of myself. And I think she thought, let this crazy kid, let him go out and see what the real world is like, and he'll be back in 2 days. But I never did. I got an apartment with a roommate, and and of course had the power turned off, and had 3-day eviction notices and all kind of drama and trauma because I was still figuring things out. But I stayed out there, as on my own.
And you stopped using drugs and alcohol at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I still was drinking, and I quit everything at 20 years old on my birthday. I said, okay, that was it. I remember going to a party with some people from work, and I was driving my friend's Mustang, and I just kind of had my arm out the window, and I was looking at the grass underneath, and suddenly it dawned on me, like, there shouldn't be grass here. I'm driving a car. And I realized I was in the yard of an apartment building, driving in, about to hit the apartment building. And I realized, okay, this VO whiskey is not really working in my life either.
Wow. Wow.
All right. So that's how that ended up, is, and I love to say, I think it was Eileen who asked the question, and that's it. My life was transformed. And then I became rich and sexy and famous, and, puppies love me, and, people throw rose petals in my path, but that didn't quite work out that way.
You're kidding.
But I decided. You moved
to Miami because you were from Miami.
No, I moved to Miami when I was 16. Right after that, so I was working, and so I left school just to work full time. So then I was working as a waiter at Red Lobster and as a cook at Howard Johnson's on the graveyard shift. And I had lied about my age to get the jobs, because at Red Lobster, I was a waiter serving alcohol, and you had to be 18. So I was 16, but I could grow a pretty good mustache at 16. So I told him I was 19, because I wanted, the waiter is where you really made the big bucks. Cooks, not so much. But if you were a good waiter, you could make big bucks, right? So I'm waiting tables at Red Lobster. I'm cooking, flipping burgers and eggs on the graveyard shift at Hojo's, and they make me a manager trainee, and then an assistant manager. And then they had to fire the manager of the Milwaukee store for whatever reason. And the area supervisor asked me to be the interim manager of the Milwaukee Howard Johnson. And I thought, ain't no interim thing. I'm going to run this thing so good, they make me the permanent manager. And that's what happened. So they made me the manager. So at 16 years old, I was running this, very big, by restaurant standards, a pretty busy store, probably doing 80 grand a month. So that's a kind, a lot of employees, 80 grand a month in sales. That's like a real thing. And I was learning about being an entrepreneur there, because at Howard Johnson was really great experience for me, because as a restaurant manager, you called in your payroll every week, you did your inventory once a month, you figured out your food cost, and you literally submitted your P&L, because you every 3 times a week you submitted whatever your light bill was, your water bill, any vendors, and you had to track them all down, and then you had to turn in your P&L statement at the end of the month. So as a 16-year-old kid, I knew how to write a profit and loss statement for a business.
Wow.
And so I was.
A lot of people don't know how to do that today, at 40.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And then I was about 17, And it's, Wisconsin is where I was, 60 below zero wind chill factors, 2 feet of snow on the ground. And my dream as a kid had always been, I saw there was this place called Miami, and they had this football team called the Dolphins with a coach named Don Shula. And Don Shula wore polo shirts and sunglasses in January and December. And there were like palm trees and coconuts. And I just said, so in that January, I said, I gave a 3-week notice, and I said, I'm moving to Miami. I had an old beat up Plymouth, and I sold whatever didn't fit in the Plymouth. I had about 380, 370, something like that, dollars, which was a lot of money back then. And I went to Miami. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a house. I didn't know a single person there. But I had a dream to live somewhere warm in the wintertime. Wow. And, got down here, and then I contacted Howard Johnson, the division here, and they hired me right away. So I had a job like within a day, and I was staying at you'll know this, the Sinbad Hotel on Biscayne Boulevard, which at that time,
I don't know that hotel.
Well, good, because it's, but I mean, back then it was just a slum, and it was a hooker hotel. So it was $17 a night for a room, unless you wanted a vibrating water bed, that was $35. So I was staying at the Sinbad Hotel, $17 a night, until I found an apartment.
Wow. And was it then that you got shot?
No, that's later on. But the point
we were going to restaurants. Yes.
Yeah.
That's where we were going.
I was working for them, and then I got contacted by a company in North Carolina, and I'd been recommended to them by a manager that I had trained. It was a guy from Kuwait. He was from Kuwait, this very, very wealthy man who had bought like 6 or 7 hotels there in Raleigh and Durham and around there in North Carolina. And he had bought a high-rise Howard Johnson, and he wanted to have the best Howard Johnson in the country. And so I was recommended, and they asked me to fly up there and do an interview, and they hired me. And I went up there for a big increase in pay. And then still just kind of figured out, I still have like waitresses who can make more money than me, because I'm working 80, 90 hours a week. I have a fixed salary. I mean, the money is working for yourself. And so my assistant manager and I leased a restaurant in Tarboro, North Carolina, a seafood place. And I quit my job to do that. And we were so naive. We thought, we'll hire someone to run that restaurant, and we'll do a restaurant consulting business. And we took advertisements in the Wall Street Journal, like any restaurant owner would read the Wall Street Journal, right? It was just the dumbest thing. So we were just broke, we ended up having to give the restaurant back to the guy we leased it from. And that was the first time. And then when I was like 30, I did the same thing. I bootstrapped a pizza restaurant with a buddy of mine. And we didn't have enough money to start up. And that got seized by the IRS because we couldn't pay the taxes. So those were like really bitter, horrific failures, but obviously gave me all kind of lessons that allowed me to learn and grow.
What you remember when Periscope became a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Was it Periscope? Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And you were on Periscope every day. And I loved Periscope because I felt like I could talk to you every day, which I know I could call you too, but you'd come on and I'd get to see you. And I remember in one of those Periscopes, you were talking about that restaurant, and you were saying that the people that you were attracting at the time were because you had a victim mindset. You were a person that had a victim mindset, even after you'd made those changes, even after you'd saved yourself, you'd gotten clean. but you still hadn't been able to overcome that. And you attributed that victim mindset to those failures. Is this accurate what I'm saying? And if not, could you shed light on it?
Yeah, I was making all kind of changes on the conscious level, but I hadn't changed anything on the subconscious level.
Okay.
And that's really that's the nexus of that radical rebirth book. That if there's, we can go out on the bus stop, find the next 100 people we find and say, hey, do you want to be rich? And 99 out of 100 will say, yeah, of course I want to be rich. And the other one is probably lying, right? So on a conscious level, we want to be wealthy. We want to be successful. We want to be healthy. We want to be in a happy relationship. We want our life to work. But on a subconscious level, a lot of us don't want our lives to work. We don't want to be wealthy because we have subconscious programming that money is bad, or rich people are evil, or it's spiritual to be poor. And so on the conscious level, we're going for the promotion and the new job and the new business and the grind and the hustle. And we're watching Gary Vee videos and we're working our face off. But if you have that programming that you think rich people are evil, you're just going to sabotage yourself because of that subconscious programming. And that's what it took me till 30 years of my life, and getting that second restaurant seized by the IRS. That's what it took for me to recognize that I had this subconscious programming. And if you're 30 years old and you're selling all your furniture and sleeping on the floor, which is what I was doing, that's not romantic. Okay. When you're 20 and you do it, it's romantic, right? All the founders, right? They're eating ramen noodles, right? For me, it was macaroni and cheese, right? The Grand Union store version, which was 4 boxes for $1 instead of Kraft, which was 3 boxes for $1. So I could get a meal for 25 cents. So at 20, that's romantic. At 30, you got friends with cars and homes and their careers are, it's not romantic anymore. So I'm like at 30, losing everything again. With that, when they seized my place, I had no house, my car was leased for the restaurant, so I had no house, no car, no credit cards, no money. I was $55,000 in debt. And at that point in my life, $55,000 might as well have been 55 million, right? So, when you face a scenario like that, you either confront it and do something about it, or you just go down the well of victimhood forever. And so I asked myself, okay, well, with all these things happening, the negative, dysfunctional relationship after each other, the health challenges, the business failures, was there, I asked myself the most important question that I've ever asked myself, which was there one person who was always at the scene of the crime? And of course, I did not like the answer to that question, but that was the answer that set me free. So then I began, which has now been 32 years of study of the principles of prosperity, study into the human subconscious mind. Why do we lie to ourselves? Why do we delude ourselves? Why do we self-sabotage ourselves? Why do we say we want these things on a conscious level, but work so hard to sabotage them on the subconscious level?
What fascinates me about that is that the background that you came from, the story that you've told, you're not a therapist, you don't have a therapy degree. From what I've heard of your story, it's not like anybody was paying for you to go to the therapist, right? Like nobody was paying for an intervention. And yet you had the wherewithal to ask that question, as opposed to just continue blaming everyone and going down that rabbit path? I mean, was there anything, anyone, any person, any book, any moment that triggered that kind of response? Or did you just wake up one morning and say, I'm the common denominator and I need to study prosperity?
There was a trigger. There was a person. So I was in, at that point, I had, they seized the restaurant. I'm $55,000 in debt. Now, the way I financed the restaurant, I had got into direct selling. Companies like Amway or Herbalife, New Skin, you guys know those kind of companies, right? So I had joined that business and I had made a little money. And I had like a bankroll of like $11,000 that I put into this restaurant, and my partner put in a similar amount. And that's what we thought we could start a restaurant with, which is insane, but that's what we thought. So now so what happens now, I'm in the restaurant working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. And so I stopped doing the direct selling business. I lose my income there because I'm not paying any attention to it. And then the IRS seizes it, and I'm sitting here $55,000 in debt. I'm like, I could go to Denny's and maybe they'll hire me to be a manager and pay me $30,000 a year, but I'll be broke for the rest of my life. How am I going to pay off $55,000 to the IRS, with huge interest and penalties accruing every day? And so I thought, I got to get back in direct selling. I got to go and make some serious money in a quicker way. So that's what put me back in direct selling. I forgot why I'm telling you that. What was the question you asked?
What was the trigger? What was the trigger to get you to question your belief?
Right. So I'm in that business and I'm doing pretty well with it. And I start this training for my team, and then other people from the company start asking if they could visit. And then I get a call from Sven Spock, who was one of those top level Starfleet commanders who, huge team, makes all the big bucks. And him and his wife, Shivani, they asked, hey, would you come to Sacramento and do this training you're doing for your team? Would you come and do that for our team? And I'm so honored. I say, yes. We fly up there. They're delightful people. They take me to dinner the night before to chat, about everything. And I did what I always did at that point in my life. They were asking me what's going on, and I started regaling them with all the stories of trauma and drama that were happening around me, and all how I was just this innocent victim with all of this calamity raining down upon me. And so we finished the dinner. They have a beautiful little red Mercedes convertible. Shivani gets in. I open the door. She gets in. I'm getting in. Spence is opening the driver's door. He looks over to me and he says, have you given any thought what you might be doing to manifest all of this bad stuff happening? I'm gobsmacked. I'm like, has this son of a bitch not been listening to a word that I just said? I've just spent an hour explaining all of these evil, mean, nasty people who are attacking me and how innocent I am and how the universe is conspiring to sabotage everything I do. And this guy's not even paying attention. How could he ask me such a question? And of course, they were new thought people. They believed in positive mental attitude, and they read those kind of books and things. So I'm like, I don't know what kind of woo-woo crap those guys are studying, but I want none of it.
That is amazing. Right? I love this.
But I don't know what I said. I can't remember what I replied, but it obviously was something to the effect of, I'm not sure what woo-woo shit you believe in, but I'm just an innocent victim here.
That's your reality.
But that question is bugging me. I'm just grinding my molars for like 3 weeks. how could he say that? Why would he say that? What does he know that he would make him think that I had anything to do with this? You know, and it was that time of self-reflection that really caused me to ask that question of myself.
And now you spend your entire life doing that to everyone that comes around you.
I do. Payback's a mother.
Now everyone's like, how could Randy have said that? How could Randy have asked that question? Who does he think he is?
Right. Yeah. Because I recognize now that, Spence asking me that question was the greatest gift a human can ever do for another human. If you love them enough and respect them enough to be truthful with them, to speak with integrity.
I think that's beautiful. And what is even greater is that he didn't tell you you are the problem. He asked you a question to make you ponder whether you were the problem. They say that we don't need better answers in this life, we need better questions. And I think that's a great example of that, because you were asked a question that made you come to that determination, as opposed to somebody saying to you, hey, Randy, you're just being a victim here. You're just not. So being truthful isn't necessarily telling people what you think, but asking them questions so that they come up with their own answers, and hopefully they're answers that help them grow like it helped you grow.
Yeah, that's a very perceptive pickup by you, because a lot of the people who would have the courage to speak truth to power would do what you said. They just say, Randy, stop being a victim. Can't you see you're just doing this to yourself? Grow up, wake up. He was smart enough to ask it in the form of a question that lingered in my mind. Yeah.
So how did you start the transformation from being a victim to a victor? Because that is something you talk about a lot. And it has been one of the most profound lessons you've taught me. How did you make that? How did you start changing that at a subconscious level? Because how do you get there?
Yeah. So for me, I started going to a Science of Mind church, and I got a hold of the book, The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And then I found my way to a Unity church, Unity on the Bay in Miami back then, and started reading Prosperity by Charles Fillmore and Catherine Ponder and Eric Butterworth and some of these new thought people who spoke or taught or wrote about prosperity. And that became my passion. I spent 2 hours a day in self-development right after that, losing that restaurant, because I didn't have a job. I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have anything to do except, watch late night infomercials on how to get rich, until I had to sell the TV. And then once the TV was sold, then there was nothing else to do. So I used to sit on the TV 2 a.m. We had a guy back then, his name was Tom Vu, and he used to sell, it was like one of those real estate with no money down things. And he would be, so it'd be like 3 a.m. I'm sitting on the couch watching Tom Vu infomercials. He's like, you there, you on the sofa. I'm like, you on the sofa, you are a loser. You are a loser. Your wife's asleep. Your baby's asleep. Nobody cares about you. If you don't buy my program, you deserve to be broke. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta buy this program. But it was like $200 or $300. There was no way I could do that, right? So that's what I'm doing all night, right? Until again, then,
did you ever buy this program?
The last things you sell are like the sofa, the bed, and the TV. Okay. The lamp, the dining room table, they're inconvenient. But when it comes down to go time for the bed, the TV, and, the sofa, you're in serious, what? So now I'm spending 2 hours a day just reading the science of mind and as a man thinketh and the magic of thinking big and stuff like that. And I mean, I did it for 2 hours a day for a long time. And it really started transforming my life. And then I went down to 1 hour a day. And I found like every 6 months to a year, I was just making these cataclysmic leaps forward. And I got to the point where I went down to like 30 minutes a day of self-development. And that's where I'm at today. I still do 30 minutes self-development every morning. I don't answer the phone. I don't answer the door. I don't leave the house until I've done my self-development time to get my consciousness up to where I want it to be. And then, of course, when you get your consciousness, and I believe this, some people are going to think it's a bunch of, esoteric woo-woo or whatever, but I believe in energy and energy vibrations. And I think when you get your consciousness vibrating at a certain level, you attract people and circumstances in your life that are also operating at that level of what I would now call prosperity consciousness. So it was a process. And I felt like it took 2 years, but after 2 years, I felt like I had completely made over myself. I had completely made over my life. And if you study, biology, they would say we've got all these trillions of cells in our body, and they say that you replace every single cell in your body over a period of 2 years. So I think that's what happened with me, is I literally re-engineered every cell in my body, including the way that I thought and my mindset and my perspective and my consciousness. And then I felt like after a year, I did it again. And then I felt like after 6 months, I did it again. And now I'm always like, I'm astounded at how ignorant I was 3 weeks ago. I feel like you get on that path of exponential development, and you start to rework and remodel your consciousness at those kind of speeds.
I have another question for you, but before I ask you that question, I remember many years ago, I must have been 18 at the time, you were speaking at the Unity Church, and it was in Miami Beach, and it was right next to a rehab where one of my friends from high school had been put for alcoholism. And I had met you through my dad, and I knew you through Florida Speakers Association, and I had the privilege of spending time with you. But then I saw that you were speaking at this church, and it was right next to him. And I called him up and I said, I'm going to pick you up, and we're going to go see my friend Randy, and we're going to hear him. And I remember we went to see you, and you were talking about the principles of prosperity, just blowing my mind, because I had never heard any of the concepts that you were talking about. My dad had always been in personal development, but not into prosperity, which was a different topic, something totally new for me. And you enlightened me. And I remember after that, I went to lunch with my friend, and we made all sorts of plans about how we were going to change our lives and seek success and, do all these wonderful things. And all these years later, it's 25 years later, he's been in recovery for all that time, and he's done amazing things, and to this day we still talk about that day that we went to go see you, to this day. I'm
humbled and honored. What can I say? That's amazing.
So here's the question that I have for you, because something that you do is that you love radical terms, because you get people to think radically. And in your book, the subtitle is "Kill Off the Old You." And my question is, what if you like yourself? What if you like your life? Why would I like my life? Why do I want to kill off the old me? I want to know what you think about that.
Yes, so that's a really penetrating question, because it speaks to the content of the book and versus how the book is presented to get people to read it. Because, right, if people don't find your work, then they can't get any benefit from your work. So we create a title or a subtitle or a cover design or a seminar write-up or a speaker bio or something that we hope will reflect what we think the benefit to the audience, listener, reader will be. I hope 90% of the people who read my book don't have to kill off the old you. Unfortunately, I believe the reality is 90% do want and need to kill off the old you. And regarding the other 10%, I wrote the book for those people too, because they don't have to kill off the version of them they hate. They get the much more fun, prosperous process of moving toward the higher version of themselves that they want to become. And that's, for my life, what it was for me was the first 30 years, 35 years was running away from the me that I hated. And then I got to the point where I've been the last 30 years, which is running toward the new highest possible version of myself that I want to attain. And
Randy,
so the book is for,
because you look like you're 40. So that would only give you 10 years to be able to do what you're saying.
In April, I will be 63.
It's just not possible. Can anybody here believe that he's 63 years old? It's not possible.
Well, I'm not there yet. Let's not rush it. I'm only 62.
You're only 62. Well, you look like you're 40. So you're going to have to talk to us about how you maintain that incredible physique of yours too.
Listen, that's part of recreating yourself. It's a big element in the book, is I believe the physical part as well. Because here's the secret. When you move out of the house at 15 years old, you eat nothing but pizza, cake, cookies, 10 Cokes a day, 20 cups of coffee a day, and 3 packs of cigarettes a day. That was my diet. And that's why I believe I lost the restaurant the second time around. I was so sick. I had such chronic fatigue syndrome, autotoxicity, candida, that I just didn't even have the energy to fight for saving my restaurant. I was so sick. And I knew if I could I had all these great ideas, all these things I wanted to do. And I thought, if I could just get my body to be able to keep up with my mind, I could do amazing stuff. And so I spent the first 30 years destroying my health. And then I've spent the second 30 years regaining my health.
And it hasn't been without
I'll be playing softball on Sunday. And by the way, we just finished our season. We had 14-game season. My batting average for the season was, and this will be a worldwide exclusive. You will be the first outlet to report this, okay? CNN doesn't know this. ABC doesn't know this. The Washington Post doesn't know this. But here today, Caroline de Posada is breaking the story. Yeah. My batting average for the season was .825.
Wow.
Right? So I'm playing, for people who don't know baseball or softball, that's cray, okay? In baseball, a good average is 300. In softball, a great average is 500, 550, because it's
You got
recreation.
Katie saying that that's HOF territory, Hoff territory.
It's, oh yeah. Well, actually, I am in the Hall of Fame for my
Oh,
softball league. So, but so 825, right, for a 14 game season. And why? Because now at this age, I'm like, so like literally from last season to this season, I said, okay, I'm going to evaluate my workouts. I'm going to evaluate my stretching. I'm going to evaluate my diet again, because now I'm getting older. You know, when you're 20, 30, you can roll out of bed at 3 a.m. and play, right? So, but I'll be playing Sunday in the playoffs. And here's the thing. So I think there's 8 teams in our division, and 2 of them are like mine. I'm on what's called a master's team, which means 50 and above. So 2 of us are actually 3 of us are master's teams. And then the other 5 teams are 20, 30-year-old guys, right? So I'm playing against 20-year-old kids who can roll out of bed at 3 a.m. and go 8 for 8, you know? And I am diving for balls, I'm sliding into bases, and I'm batting 800. How? Because now I started to realize, yeah, health really matters. I've got to do pre-game stretches. I've got to do cool down stretches. I have to. So I cut back my strength training workouts about 50% before this season. I increased my stretching probably at 35 or 40%. And then I found a couple new supplements that I, mixed up the supplementation that I'm taking. And I try to eat clean and drink clean. And so, yeah, I'm still playing ball at 62 years old at a high level. But that's a conscious part of reinventing myself or recreating myself, moving toward that higher possible version of myself. And the physical element of that is just as important as the mental element of that.
So what do you consider eating and drinking clean for you?
Well, I don't have any alcohol or any drugs. I don't smoke. I eat a high protein, low carb diet. I like organic food. I like to eat only fresh fruits until noon, which is something I've been doing since 30 years ago when I read Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond.
Yeah.
But now what I've done different is I start with a protein. I do my cardio. I wake up, I do my cardio because I want to, before I eat or drink anything except water, because I want to burn more calories and ideally get into what they would call ketosis today. So I do that, and then I take a protein supplement which has glutathione precursors. So I'll do that shake and then switch over to fresh fruit and only do fresh fruit until lunchtime. And then I'm going to eat, egg white omelets, chicken breasts, more high protein, low carb stuff, and try to really keep no white flour, no refined flour, and as little sugar as possible.
And you have had health challenges, and I know you've had, do you want to talk a little bit about that, about how you've been able to stay healthy despite your health challenges?
Well, I mean, it's just, like I say, it's a continual process, because I was one of those people. I was skinny my whole life. I never put on weight, no matter. I was the person everybody hated because I could eat 10 hamburgers and it didn't matter. That was fine until I hit 40. After 40, forget about it. It was just the opposite. So I started getting really fluffy after 40. And so I started, then I went to exercise, and I realized, okay, I'm not really I'm not burning the kind of fat I want. And I recognize it's because I didn't have enough muscle, because I don't think you can do enough cardio. At some point after you reach 40, 45, 50, 60, you've got to build back up muscle, because your muscle is always atrophying, and muscle burns more calories. So probably when I was 45, I started doing some resistance training. And then, and I went crazy with it. I mean, there was a point I was consuming like 8,000 calories a day because I was doing incredible workouts. My upper body workout was 22 tons worth of weights that I lifted. When I added it all up, right? I had like 12 or 13 exercises that I did 3 sets of 12 each. And so I did the math and I'm like, I'm lifting 22 tons. And so, and I thought that's the secret. I just have to keep working out harder and harder and harder. But the problem is 2 things. One, I have spinal stenosis and I had a herniated disc and I ended up doing 4 different spinal surgeries. So that's very restrictive when you have spinal issues. And then it's just, you can't keep that up at 50 and 55 and 60. Your body needs so much more time to recover. And that's why I say, like, after every year or two now I'll go and evaluate it. And I realize, because I used to do a upper body workout or a leg workout in the morning and then go play softball that night. But like by the time I was 55, I realized, man, if I do a workout like that in the day, I hit like crap that night because my arms are so tired. I can't, repeat my mechanics. My spine is collapsing, right? And now at 62, I've realized not only do I not work out on the day I play ball, I don't do cardio in the morning on the day I play ball, and I won't do an upper body or a leg workout the day before my games because my body won't have recovered within 24 hours. So it's all about listening to your body, I think, as you get older and recognizing, hey, the strategy's got to change. You got to reinvent them.
I love that. But, there's and we'll probably end with this unless any of you have any questions. Take your opportunity and do it now because we don't have a lot of time left. There's a saying, what got you here isn't what gonna get you there. And I think that's your whole premise, is always listening, reevaluating, and upgrading. Dr. Sanchez is on this call, and Dr. Sanchez is someone I love and respect and I work with. And we always talk about upgrading our lives, upgrading our health, upgrading our spirit, upgrading our community. And I think that's what you promote in your Radical Rebirth book, is to continue, if you need to kill yourself off because you are just not where you need to be, and that, then that's for you. But otherwise, is it time for an upgrade?
Yeah, going back to the other thing you mentioned, it's not in the book anywhere. And I didn't even think about it when I wrote the book. But I can tell you that the catalyst for me to write that book happened on a Christmas Eve. I was in the Miami Airport Marriott, had just ended like my 11th negative dysfunctional relationship in a row. So I had said, all right, I just want to be the good guy, take the house, the furniture, everything. I'm just taking one car and my clothes, and I had a bunch of, hotel points because of all my travel. So I cashed them in, and I was staying at the Marriott in the drab, nondescript airport Marriott, staring at the dumpster from the, whatever hotel next door on Christmas Eve. And I was writing my suicide journal, which wasn't a suicide note to anyone. It was just my journal to myself of why it really didn't make any sense to keep on living, that my life was just so miserable and so messed up. And fortunately, I was working with a therapist, and I had put in a call to him, and he called me back and talked me off the figurative ledge, right? So I got professional help. And please, anybody who has any ideation about that, please get professional help. And so I did. But I think that night was the catalyst that caused me to write this book because I feel like this book is the mother of all my books. This is the one that pulls it all together, the whole congruent philosophy of prosperity and self-development and working on yourself. And like I said, I felt like the first half of my life, I hated myself. I hated my life. And so I had to kill off those parts of myself and my life. And then I reached the tipping point where now my life was on a positive axis and I was moving toward things I wanted to manifest. And so the book is for all people and you know, in either category, and with the idea to get into the second category as soon as you can, and just to recognize, because what I didn't realize until after I wrote the book and I was doing the PR tour and all the interviews, I realized, God, that's why I wrote that book. It was because I realized I didn't have to kill myself. I could kill off the parts of me I didn't like, and I could replace them with behaviors and traits and habits and results that I did like. And that's what I think the journey's about.
That's beautiful. That's a perfect way to end our call. We do have one question and it is 2:00. So I respect your time if you can't stay for a few minutes, but we have one more question.
I'll be happy to answer it.
Okay, so for everyone that is on the call, you can find Randy Gage's book anywhere on Amazon stores or his website, and it's Radical Rebirth, and all his other books that are his New York Times bestsellers and 12 authored books. You can find all of them at his website, randygage.com. So thank you guys for being here. And as our last question for you, and people are putting on the chat that they're buying your book right now.
Thank you. Thank you. I need the money.
What are the top 3 questions to ask yourself when you are looking to achieve a goal?
Okay. I don't know if there's 3, but if you're looking to achieve a goal, the first one that comes to mind for me is, okay, what are you willing to give up to get it?
Amen.
Right? I have a meeting this evening with a client, kind of the executive team, and it's on their product line development. And what's the plan for the next 3 years? What are the product line extension and everything? And I'm going to have a bunch of wailing and shrieking on that call because I'm got 7 products on a list of their X number of products that I'm going to say, you need to discontinue those 7 products, 2 or 3 of which are really good products that are amazing, even a couple of them, but they're not congruent with the brand we're building. You know, they do well, they do a couple $100 million a year, but remember what you said earlier about what gets you here won't get you there. They didn't hire me because they want to stay at a couple $100 million. They hired me because they want to become a unicorn. They want to break the $1 billion market. And so what I have to tell them tonight is, okay, you're going to have to let go of some of these products, some of which you're selling a lot of, but they're clouding your branding message. They're going to prevent you from becoming a unicorn, right? It's the same for us in our personal lives. Every one of you in this Zoom room right now, every one of you watching on YouTube after the fact, every one of you listening to the podcast after the fact, you're already using all 24 hours of every day. Every day. You already are using every second available. So now you have this new goal. You're going to write an opera, or you're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, or you're going to start a nonprofit to drill water wells somewhere. What are you going to give up for that? Because you're already using all the time. Something's got to go. Is it going to be I used to play softball 5 nights a week. I realized, you know what? If I have these goals that I want to achieve financially, but if I'm playing softball 5 nights a week, I'm probably not going to achieve my financial goals. I might need to cut down the amount of time I'm playing softball, right? Is it your bowling league? Is it your book club? Is it your this hobby or that hobby. I mean, we all need diversions. We all need relaxation. We all need family time, quality time. But if this goal is really something, worth attaining, you're going to have to be willing to sacrifice something for it. So I always say, what are you willing to give up to get it? And then the next question that would be, okay, who do I have to become to get it? Because if you were, one of my goals is to be a billionaire, right? I don't know if I'll keep that goal. I'm always reevaluating it from time to time. Like, as my life changes, does that still matter to me? But at this point, I still think I would like to become a billionaire, because I think about what I could do if I had those kind of resources. But I have to recognize I'm going to have to become a different person, a higher version of myself, if I do want to become a billionaire, because obviously I'm not capable of being a billionaire right now, or I would already be a billionaire. So something has to change. There's some kind of growth, right? Because we know prosperity is created by 3 ways. Or if we don't know, I'm about to tell you. I'm fixing to tell you. Here's the 3 ways prosperity is created. Number 1, we solve problems. Number 2, we add value. Or number 3, we envision better possibilities. That's the only way true prosperity is created, right? I mean, your rich uncle could leave you $500,000, or you might hit the lotto scratch off and win $1 million. But if you don't change who you are, you won't keep that prosperity, right? So, because that's not true prosperity, lasting prosperity. So we got to look at those 3 things. So if I'm not a billionaire and I want to become a billionaire, I have to say, okay, I got to solve bigger problems. I've got to add greater value, or I've got to envision more superior possibilities. And what does that mean? That means changing who I am. That's, who am I willing to, who do I have to become in order to do that? And then if we're going to meet the criteria of the 3 questions, then question number 3 would be, am I willing to do that? Will I pay that price?
Wow. I thought that the other thing you said was a way to end it, but I think this is really the way that we should end this call, because that was amazing. Thank you for that amazing question, Katie, because it has given us incredible nuggets of wisdom to end this call with. And thank you, Randy, for giving me this interview. I so appreciate you, admire you, and thank you for being such an amazing figure in my life.
Yes, and I thank you. I adore you. Does your husband even know that if I wasn't gay, he would have never had a chance for you? Does he know that yet? Have you ever told him?
I don't think I've ever told him that, Randy. Since there's not really any competition because you are gay, there's no reason for me to share that with him.
So anyway, I adore you. I always have. And I love all the comments here. Thank you. I'm grateful. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this.
All right. Bye, everyone. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Go give something up.